So what do you think if you have a person, let's say hypothetically, there's a person who is maybe not that resilient in terms of facing feelings, facing certain pain or loss of control, and they're very sensitive to boundaries and losing boundaries and feeling like they're losing ground. And so, for instance, before they start to work with psychedelics, let's say they do a course, like some weeks, some months of breath work, consciously bringing emotions into the body, consciously feeling and building that resilience to become comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. And then when they're like, let's say, leveled up and they're like strong enough, then they're like, okay, I'm ready for the psychedelics. Now let's see if I can try and do this. You think that would be like a viable approach?
I think it certainly could be for some people. I actually like to go a little bit different direction with people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Rather, because see, one of the issues I have around, I mean, you raised the example of breath work. One of the issues that I have around it is that um, really breath work is a way of still managing yourself and controlling yourself by intentionally doing certain kinds of breathing exercises. And some people even bring that into their psychedelic experience. And this is one of these places where I personally, my approach is like, please stop doing that, because we can ask, what is it that's trying to control your breath there? Well, obviously the answer is it's my ego. It's my sense of I want to control things, I want to manage things, I want to get results, I want to have the experience that I'm intending to have, and therefore I'm exerting all of this control over my breath. And as a non-dual practitioner, I'm very interested in what happens when we actually let go of the ego and we give up all attempts of control. And one of the very last places that the ego tends to hold on the most securely and firmly is in the breath.
Mm-hmm.
And back when I was actually working as a non-dual energetic practitioner and facilitating experiences with 5-MeO-DMT with clients, it was such that was one of the last hangups, is like getting people like, please let go of your breath. So I would use these phrases where I would say, um, let your body breathe, trust your breath. Um, Trying to encourage people to stop trying to maintain their experience through their breath. So sometimes I see people who have done a lot of quote unquote breath work, and they overexert that modality within their psychedelic experience, and they do it because they are afraid of letting go of control,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't trust that. One of the things I used to tell people was, you know, every night you go to sleep and your ego goes offline, and you know what? Your body breathes just fine without you. It breathes just as much as it needs to, no more and no less. And I'd like you to treat your psychedelic experience in the same way that I want you to trust, let go, surrender, and allow. And I even, especially with working with 5-MeO-DMT, and one of my other catchphrases was, I just want you to know, if I can hear you breathing, I can hear your ego. Because when people really let go, their body just breathes. It's like these little sips of breath. It's just effortless. It almost seems like they're not breathing. But to go back to the question, yes, if people engage in activities and exercises that maybe they are getting a little bit more comfortable with themselves, primarily energetically, like when we're doing breathing exercises, we're trying to call up and activate different energies, and that might produce an emotional response or even a mental response. Um, I would consider that to be significant and potentially useful. But more than saying, well, hey, do these breathing techniques and exercises, what I'd rather do is I'd tell people, just pay attention to yourself over the course of the day, over the course of the week, over the course of the month, and notice, when do you criticize yourself versus when do you say, oh, I love you, you can do that, that's okay. So in other words, start to self-monitor, like, what is the apparatus that you have functioning internally that is either criticizing you or judging you or blocking you from being authentic. Then also notice, when you experience an emotion, do you allow yourself to express it? Or do you
Mhm.
try and hide it? Or do you try and turn it into something else? Like, for example, sometimes you come across people who just laugh all the time, and there doesn't seem to be any reason like why they're laughing. And so what I would want to do is do an energetic analysis in the sense of, okay, so you're emitting and embodying energy through a laugh. And a lot of times people who laugh a lot, what they'll do is they'll say something and then they'll ha 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 ha, they'll kind of laugh about it. It's like, so that's interesting that you're making a statement about yourself or about reality or about what you think is true or valuable, and then suddenly you're laughing. And so then the laugh is actually invalidating whatever it is that you just said. So
Mhm.
obviously you have a lot of energetic tension around whatever this issue is. Probably underneath that, there's a more resonant emotional frequency that maybe there's anger, maybe there's sadness, maybe there's disappointment, maybe there's fear. And so really what we want to do is start to do an energetic assessment of ourselves of, am I being authentic? Am I being honest? Am I embodying and expressing my emotions and my thoughts when and as I have them? Or am I just trying to make other people happy? Am I trying to
Mhm.
perform according to a standard I've set up in my head? Am I trying to always create a safe space for myself? So I'm investing a lot of energy into this. Am I always trying to exert control, or am I allowing myself to laugh when I'm happy, cry when I'm sad, express
Mhm.
anger when I'm angry, right?
Mhm.
And so I like to take this idea that as human beings, we are full spectrum energetic beings, meaning
Mhm.
we can go everywhere from rage to absolute sorrow and terror, and also ecstasy and pleasure and joy.
Mhm.
And really, what we want to do is assess, am I allowing these energies to be experienced and embodied within myself or not? And that's where you can do this kind of self monitoring, like through the day.
Mhm.
Am I being authentic and genuine with my energy? Or am I doing something else? And then maybe am I sublimating it? Like with the laughter example, that would be an example of sublimation, where we're taking these energies and just ha 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 ha, I'm just laughing all the time.
Mhm.
Or similarly, if someone is like excessively happy all the time, it's not that I want people to be depressed, but if somebody is like exuberantly happy all the time, that's probably not authentic. That's probably a show. And it's probably a show they're putting on for themselves.
Mhm.
So I like to work with people at this level of, we're not engaging in practice as an exercise. We're actually looking at, how is my energetic system presenting itself? How am I encountering it? And how am I working with it and expressing with it?
Mhm.
So when people ask me, what can I do to prepare for a psychedelic experience? I say the number one thing you can do is start being really honest with yourself. And it's along the lines of what I've just described, is that's where the assessment comes from. And I say
Mhm.
the more in alignment you are with your authentic energy and less enraptured you are with projections, beliefs, and distortions, the more you're going to get out of your psychedelic
Mhm.
experience. And with that said, whatever it is that people find that helps them perhaps become more centered, more present, more authentic, then that's great. But if somebody is just taking ice baths and doing breath work and doing intermittent fasting with the idea that somehow that's magically going to make them more available to a psychedelic experience, it's like, that's just another set of beliefs.